All right, let's talk a little bit about program management, and then we'll be done for the day. All right, so I put this together when I first got with the company. They said, hey, what are the things that we need to do to have an effective program? And so I broke it down into 7 different categories. You got to have your goals for your program. Reduce downtime, extend oil drain intervals, reduce failures, extend equipment life expectancy, control maintenance and lubrication costs. All of the above, it could be something else, okay? But you got to know, everybody on your team's got to know what's the goal. What are we trying to achieve? What are we shooting for? If you don't know what the goal is, you're not going to hit the target. So these are some of the ones that we think are important. Now the next thing that is important is, I've been here 12 years and I've learned real quick that I can do training, I can do consulting with customers, but the programs that are successful are the ones that have somebody like each one of you guys that are inside that organization. Somebody that says, you know what, I'm going to make sure we got somebody keeping track of the data. When that report comes in, I'm going to make sure somebody's looking at it. We're not going to just drop it in a filing cabinet. We're going to actually follow up on the recommendations and comments from the analyst. And then we're also going to make sure that that oiler, that sampler, he has been trained so that he can give the best possible sample to the lab, okay? So training is so important. Make sure that you have that training for your personnel, but you got to manage the data and you got to have that sampler who's trained. Those people on the inside. A third one I would add would be it says personnel, it says champions. Yeah, these are champions, but I think ultimately you need a program champion. That's the guy that says, I'm going to head this up. I'm going to make sure that when we take a sample, we're going to take it at the right method. We're going to take it at the right time. We're going to get that result. We're going to follow up on it. And we're going to share that information with upper management to show them the power of fluid analysis. When you get that kind of person, that's when you maximize your return on investment. The equipment list. This is everything that we want. Whenever you set up a fluid analysis program, and this is specifically to the marketer, distributor, sales reps, do not let your customer send in any samples until you have all this information set up and uploaded with the laboratory, okay? We want to have all this information into the database. Once you do that, then they can start submitting samples. But this is everything that we need to see, much like what we talked about. You know, I want to know the manufacturer of that component. What type is it? What's the model? I want to know about the lubricant. What's the manufacturer? What's the brand? What's the name of it? What's the viscosity? All that information's on the equipment list. And then select the appropriate testing. I've told you I wouldn't do basic. I would do advanced. If you want to do extended drain, you can get extended drain comments from us. We want it to be predictive, not just preventive. We want to be predictive. We want to be ahead of the problem. And then determine your sampling intervals. We gave you some ballpark guidelines, but determine what works for you. You know, what's best for your application, your severity. Now, the importance of time. You got to take the samples at the proper frequency. You got to be consistent so that we can see that trend. Samples are properly documented. Okay, make sure we've got all that information that we've requested. They're shipped immediately. Ship your samples UPS, FedEx, DHL. Don't ship them with the Postal Service. I sent one time on my personal card just to check out the Postal Service. It took 12 days. So we don't want to be doing that. So use those 3 days. They're shipped immediately. Don't wait until you get a 10-pack. Take a sample, put it back in. Don't wait till you get all 10 samples. Send those in individually. That's why you've got the individual mailers. Receive the report and evaluate the findings. Okay, take a look at it, read it, then act on the recommendation and issue work orders. And then this is the one thing that we don't get. We don't get a lot of feedback on what you did, what you found. There's an opportunity in Horizon, our web-based software, to go in there and say, hey, this is what we found, this is what we did. And if we had that information, that's really vital to our data analysis team. But we don't get a lot of that feedback, but we encourage you to, when you log into Horizon, if you look in the upper left-hand corner, it'll say Open Action Items. And if you click on that, you can start addressing those action items. And you have the opportunity to say, hey, this is what we did, this is what it cost, and we think this is what it saved because we did a minor repair versus a major repair. What that does for you, then you can go back into Horizon and you can run a report, action taken summary report, and it'll show all the actions that you've taken for whatever period you pick. It'll show what it cost and what you saved. That's something you can go to upper management and say, hey, look, here's what we're doing with our maintenance program. This is how we're using oil analysis to save money. Reporting. Report scheduled downtime of equipment, reduction in oil costs, uptime reports, failure reductions, performing and documenting cost savings due to oil analysis. Anything you can do to show upper management, hey, this $20 sample, this $25 sample saved me thousands, saved me 10,000, okay? Had a customer that was over-the-road fleet. If I told you who they were, you'd know it. You'd probably even see them if you're on the road today. They came to us 5 years ago, and they were doing oil analysis. They were spending $13,000 a year. Had a massive fleet, and they're only doing $13,000 worth of oil analysis a year. New guy came in, got to working with him, and he got to believing in oil analysis. And so he looked, and he said, you know, Henry, he said, if I actually started sampling all of my equipment and sampling at the proper intervals, he said, I calculate that I would have to spend $250,000 a year to sample everything like I should at the right time. And so he said, I went to upper management and said, hey, we're spending $13,000 on oil analysis, but we're not doing it the right way. I want to spend $250,000. Will you sign off on that? And the guy said, that's a no-brainer. He said, in November, he said, we had 20 engines go down. He said, those engines cost $50,000 a piece, not to mention how much downtime, you know, lost freight that they lost because of that. And so he said, go for it. So they did that $250,000. That next year, he was spot on. That's what they spent. But that's the guy that got the 59-to-1 return on investment that I was talking about. So he blew it out of the water. Okay? And his vice president was all for it because he justified it to say, hey, this is what I think I can save. So get that to upper management. They make the decision. They want to see dollars and cents. I always say there's an art to fluid analysis. We got to be accurate with our data. We do a lot of round robin testing between our labs. We'll have a sample. We'll send it to all the labs, make sure everybody's doing the same. Repeatable, reproducible, so accurate, reliable, timely. Certifications and accreditations, the CLS, the OMA1, ICML, all these, MLA2, MLA3, whatever. We've got all these certifications. We think our DA team has more certifications than any other DA team that we compete against. We've got consistent turnaround. You know, we're trying to hit that 85% within 24 to 48 hours. You know, what's the testing capabilities of the lab? Relevancy of the maintenance recommendations. I think that's where we kind of go a little deeper than our competitors. We give a lot of good recommendations. Information management tools. I think when I started, the chief information officer told me, he said, Henry, we're 3 to 5 years ahead of the competition using the Horizon that we currently use. Competition's moved up. They're closer to us now, but we're getting ready to move out again when we take that Aurora and kick that in. And then we've got multiple locations. All of our labs all over the world, but all the data comes into the team in Indianapolis. Now, Randy put this together. I like this. And what he's trying to do is say, okay, if I'm setting up my program, let's look at our assets and say, what is mission critical? Okay, what level is it? Is it low? Is it medium? Is it high? And so he listed all of this equipment here and put a flag on it. Okay, high, it's unrecoverable loss of production or a safety risk. Medium, it's significant impact on production. And then low, support equipment, recoverable loss of production. So basically, he put these into these different categories. And so whenever they came in, if he had a severity 4 and it was on one of these components that was in a high level, he says, that's what we got to jump on. But if I get a severity 4 down here at a low criticality, then I don't really need to be as, that doesn't need to be at the head of the line. So he put that together, and I thought that's a very good thing for people to do that are end users. Go in there and say, what's mission critical, what's not mission critical. And when I get a severity 4, if it's a high mission critical, that goes to the front of the line. Now, some of the things I told you I've got 30 customers that I work with. Some of the things that we look at, we give them a scorecard at the end of the review. Every quarter we sit down, we look at their data. And on this scorecard we say sample compliance. And what is sample compliance? Well, when you submit your equipment list, did you sample everything you said you wanted to sample in a 12-month period? Did you sample 60%, 70%, 85%? You know, did you send in at least one sample on all of your equipment that you said you wanted to sample? If you're at 85%, that's great. We say 80% you're in compliance. So if you've got a list of equipment and you've sampled 80% of it within 12 months, you're doing okay, you're doing good. Did you take action on the comments, okay, that we sent you? Where are you in that category? Did you respond to 50% of them, 60% of them, 70% of them? How'd you do there? And what's your high severity percentage? When I'm looking at a customer, if it's a mining account, what I'm going to do is know that in their industry, 17% is a typical high severity percentage for coal mining. Okay? Over the road trucking, 15%. How do we know that? We went back and looked at all the data. So when I'm working with this customer, and let's say he's a coal mine and he's at 17%, he's going to say to me, Henry, what's my competition doing? I want to be better than my competition. So I tell him, well, coal mining 17%. So he knows I have to get my high severity reports down. And that 17%, that's a combination of 3s and 4s. When we say high severity, we're not just talking the 4. We lump the 2 together. So that's why that 17% can be a big number, but you can get down below that. And then what happens is I tell people, and I've got customers that I've been working with, when you get down below 10% on your high severities, your 3s and 4s, less than 10%, less than 1 in every 10 samples coming back as a 3 or 4, you've got a world-class fluid analysis program. I don't care what the application is, I don't care what the industry is. If you can get it down to less than 10%, that's world-class, okay? Then we look at shipping time. How are you doing? You know, we want to get it in 3 to 5 days, but less than 7 days is good. Longer than 7 days, we're going to flag it yellow. Longer than 14 days, we're going to flag it red. Sample submission. How are you submitting your samples? Are you submitting your samples with the paperwork? Are you submitting them online? Are you submitting them with the mobile app? Okay. How are you doing in that regard? We want to see everybody submitting samples online or with the mobile app. And then this is just some other charts that Randy put together. I've got a program champion. Every year we have a customer summit in October. Jeff attended this past year. One of the things that we do is we go back and look at the data, and then we select program champions. You know, we nominate 3 program champions, 3 fluid analysis programs that we think are knocking it out of the park. The program champion that I nominated, if you walk into his office, you see all kinds of graphs. He's the head of the maintenance team. When they come in, they can see what's going on with their program, okay? He does a good job of sharing that data. Just different ways to share the data. And just looking at your key performance items, such as, you know, how's your scheduled work versus your unscheduled work, okay? How are we doing? Anytime you can take it from being a number to a visual, it really seems to be more impactful. And he does a great job of having that in his office, okay? All right, last thing we want to look at here. So let's say I go see a customer. One of the things that I always do is I take that program condition report where I talk about all the things of, did you sample everything you said you wanted to? What's your high severity percentage? What's your shipping time? And then I take another report, problem summary report. How many people have seen a problem summary report? Okay, I've got some heads nodding in the back. I would encourage you to get this report. These can be set up automatically. They come from Horizon. When the month closes, you can get this the day after in your email. And what you will see, it will list all of your components that you've sampled for that month, that quarter, whatever period you select. And it'll have them listed running towards to the right. Now this is for diesel engines. You might have hydraulics next to this. You might have final drives next to this. You might have differentials next to this. But this is just the example of diesel engines. So when you look at that, what do you see? Well, for this time period, he had 6,491 units on file. The number of samples submitted was 2,574. Units not sampled, 4043. If that's a monthly report, I'm okay with that. If that's a yearly report, that means he's not sampling everything that he should have. So then we look at the high severity. What do we say high severity is? 3s and 4s combined. So 18%, 19%. He's at 37% high severity. Now, I don't know what kind of an account this was, but if this was an over-the-road account, he should be at 15%. That's what we typically see for the industry. He's at 37%. If I'm a maintenance manager, that's got my attention, okay? So now I say, okay, why am I that high? Why am I getting so many 3s and 4s? Well, you come down here and what do you see? 15%, you've got a low base number. What do we say the base number tells you? That's when it's time to change that oil out. So he's got a low base number. He's getting close to that 2.0, okay? That's part of his problem. What else? He's got overextended lube, oxidation nitration. They're at 26%, 24%. He's got viscosity high coming back. That's the most important test we run. He's at 13% of his reports are coming back as viscosity high, which would make sense with the oxidation and nitration. So this is pointing out some issues that he has. The problem summary report may confirm what he's already suspected, or it may tell him things that he did not know about, okay? So then you can even take it down here a little bit further and come on down here to the bottom and see that, okay, he's got an issue here with fuel contamination. 16% of his samples are contaminated with fuel, okay? He's also got a coolant issue here that we didn't highlight, 12%. He has a coolant contamination going on, okay? So that's the purpose of the problem summary report. It points these things out to you. I would encourage you to get that on a monthly basis if you're not getting that already, okay? All right, and I'm going to leave you with this. Who is your champion? Who's your program champion? Are you guys the program champion? Is somebody else the program champion? Okay? That person's got to be passionate about saving the company money. Fluid analysis will help you save the company money. He works from the inside, okay? I can't do it. You got to do it. You guys on the inside have to drive it, make it happen. But you're not a lone ranger because you got to go back and change the culture, okay? You got to get everybody bought into this idea of fluid analysis. One of the things that we do when we do our quarterly reviews with customers is we'll have everybody on the call. And when I start putting up one guy's numbers next to another guy's numbers, next to another guy's numbers in the tote board, what do you think that does for each one of those individuals? They want to get better. They want to get better. We never point fingers, but we say, hey, these are things you need to work on. So you, the program champion, have to go back and change things. And with that, we're done for the day.